Alrighty, welcome back to another edition of PA High School Football Report Podcast, the Waggle edition. Colleague Dan Sostek is around here somewhere. Oh, there he is. I'm Eric Epler. We toil for PennLive and we chat football. It's what we do. We handled, obviously, Dan, we handled the regular season for 10 weeks. Now it's on to the postseason. It's our weekly checkup, basically, on your football mindset, Dan.
So we can skip it this. We can skip it this week.
It's the most enjoyable part of the beginning of the podcast for me. You got Irish and then Tua'd. So how are you holding up?
It's a little easier accepting, the Patriots one, right? Because you get a step closer to drafting a real quarterback for that team. Which
That's right.
I think it's pretty apparent now they needed after Mac Jones threw two of his passes were so bad they got two of their wide receivers injured. That's when you start really realizing that it's going beyond bad, and
this may not work out.
Yeah,
that's
the Pitt game. My brother was at that game. He's also a Pitt grad. He went up to South Bend with some friends, snuck into the student section, and he said he still had a good time, but I don't think he had a good time for those 4 hours of carnage. And then the whole post game stuff. As journalists, I think we all have a little bit of sympathy for live tweeting a press conference and getting a couple words mixed up here and there. And at the end of the day, I think there are some things that need to be sorted out for both football teams I support. So
yeah, there might be a couple of sessions maybe around the campfire too. Just just make it nice because not much is going right for either one.
No, all right. But we got some good football at least in the mid-pen this week. So.
Exactly. All right. Well, I apologize for my voice. I'm fighting a vicious little head cold, but we will press through it. Right here. Okay, postseason brackets, Dan, are out. Yeah. You've seen them. We have them hanging around somewhere on PennLive. Action begins on Friday for most classifications in District 3, just not for the big boys. They will week 1 week. They have that built-in bye week in week 11, so they will start with quarterfinals in week 12.
Yep.
However, we're not going to break into the brackets just yet. First, we want to sort of, how should I put this? Sort of wave goodbye to some of the players that we thought made a mark on their teams that didn't qualify for the playoffs. It's really an abrupt thing because once you get to that, the ending point of week 10, everybody scatters and starts looking brackets. And then if you don't make it and you're a senior, you're sort of just left, hey, this is done. We're done all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's just an abrupt sort of ending. You don't see it coming, even though you see it for a couple of weeks. So it was sort of a piece that we've done through the years where going into the last week, we sort of pieced together. I did it on Friday. We pieced 23 of those players for the year 2023. See what we did there. That was fun. And posted them Friday. And Dan and I are gonna go through and chat about some of the guys that are either on the list or maybe Dan wants to add a few. It's entirely up to him. And we'll just chat about some of these guys who have really made an impact for their programs and, just won't be part of the playoffs and sort of moving on, whether it's to the college field or the wrestling and a winter sport, who knows? But there's some really good players out there. And let me say this too. This list could have been 150 guys.
Yeah.
You're talking about seniors, you're talking about linemen and defensive back, every position under the sun. We could have made this list 250 strong and been okay with it. But we decided, obviously, for the year 2023 to scale down to 23 guys. So this was the list I came up with, or we came up with it, for last Friday heading in. So Dan, I'm going to start with you. I do want to say one other nugget, and this is a good nugget. We will not talk about Big Spring 2A lineman Zach Bell. And why will we not do that? Because I didn't think in my math, again, this is why I write for a living and don't do mathematical equations. I really believe that Big Spring was not going to get in, even with a victory. And of course, they did win in week 10, and they did sneak into the 10th and final seed in 4A. So congratulations, Zach Bell. We're not talking about you, even though we talked about you on Friday.
Yeah, I think I'm very happy we hired Evan Whedon, but if we didn't hire Evan as our next reporter, we should have hired a mathematician, right, to kind of handle all this stuff.
Yes,
So we could
exactly.
have someone to tell us if a Big Spring win and X loss could do that. So happy you're here, Evan, but maybe a human calculator would have also been nice too.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. So Dan, let's start with you. You pick out a couple guys or pick out a guy or two, and let's see what he's done on the way out.
I'm gonna start with Eli Hargrove. Just less about he had a solid season this year coming back from the injury, but I think that's kind of the headline to me, right? Is
Yes.
this kid's been through a lot. That the injury, he's battled through injuries throughout his career. Missed last year. Imagine if Carlisle had Eli Hargrove last year. They were pretty competitive in their playoff opener against Hempfield. You don't know what happens if you have both Hargrove brothers on that team. Just always a really good kid. Really, those kids are really fun to talk to. I remember last year, Kyle Williams of Harrisburg, one of the best players in District 3, said the Hargrove twins were the toughest kids he had to go against.
Yep.
So it's a shame, he didn't get to send out, to finish his career in the playoffs. And he missed the playoffs last year, but really good player for Carlisle, good kid, and again, anytime a player battles through an injury like that, I think it was a torn ACL if I remember correctly, to battle and come back on the field, be a senior leader for a team looking to kind of refind its footing after losing a ton of players last year and being a senior leader for that group. I just want to give a shout out to Eli Hargrove.
Hargrove too. I got a chance to see him against Trinity earlier in the season, and it was clear. I'm sorry, it wasn't Trinity, but I can't remember who it was. Maybe New York, maybe I don't know. Well, I'll check the schedule, but it was clear he was not 100%. His knee was heavily bandaged. It was slowing him down, but I always saw the grit in this guy when I got a chance to play or got a chance to see him play. I saw him play maybe 4 or 5 times live in his career, and he just works. He works so hard, and you could clearly see that knee was not allowing him to be at his best all season long. I don't know what his percentage would be if you asked him, but the way I saw it, I don't know. He may have been 60, 65, 70%, maybe. It just held him back. So you're right. It's just unfortunate to see him sort of have to go out that way. But he's been a tremendous player for them. Not just a physical player for them, but also obviously a leader on that program. It's done pretty good over the last couple of years. Playing that type of schedule every single year and trying to build up. So kudos to Eli Hargrove, and I wish him the best. I'm going to start with a quarterback, Dan. I didn't think I was going to start with a quarterback, but I'm going to say Riley Harmon out of Chambersburg.
Good pick.
And this is, Chambersburg's in the same boat as Carlisle. When you're trying to take that next step, and Chambersburg has been in that 4, 5, 6 win sort of range for years and years and years.
Yeah.
You're trying to take that next step in the Commonwealth. It is drastically more difficult than maybe trying to do it in any other conference in Pennsylvania, because it's just an onslaught.
Yep.
And it's different schemes. The speed is you're either equal or facing superior speed, facing superior size. And Riley Harmon, every time I see him under center, no matter what happens, he gets up, dusts himself off, goes right back to the next play. And at 5'10", 170 pounds, that's hard to do.
Yep.
For multiple years too. And I know he was platooning and they were using him in different different opportunities. With Jameer Jones down there, they were. Coach Luther was trying different things to bump that offensive set, and I just think this kid's been a great sort of face of this program, really, for the last couple of years, and he's a gamer. He's the kind of quarterback that guys want to play for and play with. So I applaud him. I think he's been tremendous for them under constant duress, and that's not a diss on the offensive lineman. It's just the way the Commonwealth Division works. It never broke this kid at all, and he just kept coming and coming and coming. So I really enjoyed watching Riley Harmon play.
Yeah, it's a really good pick. I'm obviously I worked down in Chambersburg for 4 years and covered that program pretty extensively. Yep. He reminds me a lot of the last time they made the district playoffs. The Brady Stumbaugh at quarterback. He's very similar kind of kid to that. I just think the rest of the team was kind of younger around Harmon as opposed to Stumbaugh. Kind of had a lot of veterans with him that helped them get to the playoffs. But just a really tough, resilient kid that I always thought never really looked overmatched and more just they were kind of go up against the 8 ball a little bit. And the thing we always talk about with Chambersburg is they have the players I think on the outside, and they're literally the defending state track champions. So it's a athletic school. They're really good at basketball, really good at wrestling. For some reason, it's just never been it's kind of the line play is where they need to make stuff up. And I think Harmon's done a great job kind of dealing with the challenges of playing in a Commonwealth division without an A+ offensive line. It's just really hard to get through a season. And I think they had big wins this year. They beat CD East. That's a big win. It's just a bunch of just really tough, hard-nosed players. So that's a good pick. I'm going to go with I feel like this is kind of low-hanging fruit because we talked about him a lot, but you got to shout out Cole Bartram, right? Like,
yes,
you just have to shout out Cole Bartram. One of the most if we gave out an award, if we had some sort of end of season award for who we think deserves the biggest ice bath at the end of the year, it'd probably go to Cole Bartram, I'd imagine. I think he's went over 1,800 rushing yards this year, over 100 tackles. Pretty much was the entire Northern offense. I know we say that a lot about players, but Cole Bartram was almost literally Northern's entire offense this year. And he runs in a way that, really fits who he is as a player. He embraces contact, and I always joke he's got a wrestling season coming up in about a couple weeks already. He'll probably be at our media day next week, representing Northern wrestling. I don't know how he's going to deal with all the bumps and bruises, but I guess that's why he wrestles, right? He's probably way tougher than any of us, but just a really fun player who, last year I feel like the Northern football team didn't really get the shine it deserved for how far they went with kind of, I would say, a good team, but I didn't think they would be in the district, it was district semifinals, I believe, against Exeter.
Yep.
And they gave Exeter a tough game. And I think Bartram was the kind of guy that really set the tone for that team. So just a really great career. He's going to be wrestling at Lock Haven, which tells you all you need to know about how good he is as a wrestler. I've heard that he wishes he could play football still, and I wouldn't count out at Lock Haven find his way to the gridiron at some point.
Yeah, I think it's wise. I think if you're Lock Haven, you're like, hey, listen, we'll just cut you off a few weeks early so you can get ready for wrestling. But yeah, we want you on the gridiron too. Yeah, and nothing. You always ask yourself, who's ultimately making a decision when a guy like Cole Bartram runs it 42 times a game or 38 times a game? You're like, is the coach Bill Miller? I would probably guess it's Cole. Just say, listen, you're going to give me the ball. That's the way I envision Cole Bartram, just because he's been so successful. And I think he has this sort of what do you call it? This sort of notoriety, or the sort of the celebrity status.
Yeah,
we could go, coach, I'm good for at least 10 more
Seniority.
carries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
senior year, he gets
yeah,
fields.
he's been incredible the last last 3 years really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching him play, and you know what you're gonna get when you play Northern, and it's just a matter of can you stop it. You know, a lot of guys just bank in the box, and basically put 8 guys in the box, and sometimes that didn't even work against him. So he's been a really impressive runner, and obviously having been an all-state linebacker, really impressive on the defensive side too. So yeah, he's one guy I certainly miss. These guys are a package deal to me,
Oh,
Dan.
you stole mine. That was going to be my next one. I already knew where you're going.
The Gibneys at Susquehanna.
Yeah.
Derek obviously being the quarterback, and he plays defensive end. He punts. Drew being the wideout and cornerback on his team. You have to mention both of them really, because quite frankly, that's been 80%, 85% Susquehanna's offensive. The last couple of years. I mean, these guys are sort of thrown into the mix, as sophomores, out of necessity, and then they get a chance. It's great. They got a chance to sort of to play with their dad, to play under their dad, who took over for Augie Glass this year. So, and then they went and had some pretty good efforts and some pretty good victories. Just fell short of the postseason. So, Derek Gibney has been great. I think he's over 1,600 yards this year. Or no, I'm sorry, he's over 2,000 yards this year.
Yeah.
And 25 touchdowns heading into last week. And I think Drew Gibney's been like something around 50 receptions. And he's also one of their top tacklers. Same with Gibney. So I mean, it's really been a really good tandem brother ensemble there at Susquehanna, and those guys are really going to be missed because, like I said, they just supplied so much offense to that team and gave them shots to win games that maybe most didn't think they would be in.
Yeah.
Including last week, I didn't think they were going to beat Juniata, and they beat them 18-6. So that was a big way to end the season for them. So those two guys, Drew and Derek Gibney, are two guys that we'll miss watching.
Yep, that's good pick. And it is always fun to just have that quarterback wide receiver duo.
Yeah.
I do the Mid Penn Stars on Friday nights, and every Friday night I just always type in Derek and Drew Gibney right
Yeah.
next because I do it alphabetically, so
Yeah.
they're always just right next to each other every week. It's always a fun little
Automatic.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the Liberty division with my next guy I'm shouting out. And just go Tegan Engel at Upper Dauphin. He's a really good two-way player. That I'd say probably more so as a linebacker is where he really made his mark for an Upper Dauphin program. That's been one of the better, smaller school programs in our area of the last couple of years. Obviously, missing the playoffs this year, but just a Upper Dauphin wins games, especially this year. They were more of a defensive team than they've been in years past, losing Brady Morgan and everything. But Engel has just been a really good player for them for his entire career. And those Liberty Division players are easy to overlook, but every week you look up and see Engel's got 10 sacks, a couple tackles for loss. Just an impact football player at the Liberty Division level.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. All right, I'm going to skip. I'm going to come back to the Capital Division, which obviously have a couple of hammers. Four hammers made the playoffs. 4 of the 7 teams. I think it's 4 out of 7, right? We got Camp Hill, Trinity, Steel High, and West Perry.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So 4 out of 7 are in the postseason. One that's not, but I'm really happy about playing football again is Middletown.
Yep.
So I'm going to say Chase Eberly, their two-way lineman. And one of the reasons, too, I'm going to say Chase is one, when I saw Middletown, it was fairly early. I saw them twice live. It was fairly early in the season. And I saw a really physical, if not, tight. If not, what's the word I'm looking for? they weren't sort of in sync yet. They hadn't gelled. They sort of really hadn't bonded. You know what I mean? But the physical play was directly off of a guy like Eberle, basically bringing these guys along after a season, the worst 2022 that you could have if you're a football program. To bring them back, the leadership he showed, not only off the field during practice, but all summer during workouts to get these guys, whatever was going to show up to play football. And Scott Govern was not sure who was going to show up, but they showed up. They had a good number of guys back to play after the lost season. And Chase was one of those guys that just sort of kept everybody together, kept them on point. And they played a lot more physical and a lot cleaner than I think most expected them to be. So Scott Govern gets credit for that, a lot of that too. The sort of the path that he took them on. Yes, they finished 1-9, but what we're most expecting out of them, in this kind of season. So so a guy like Eberle really doesn't get full credit, in a season like that either. But I tell you what, I watched him play. Love how he plays the game. Loves how he sort of brings everybody else with him. He was very how do you say? I'm sorry, my cold is kicking in here.
Yeah, you're a little lost for words today.
I'm a little lost for words today, but he just brought his teammates along with him and was very encouraging during the whole season too, and at least a couple games that I saw too. He really stood out as a leader and not just in between the lines. So Chase Eberle is a guy I applaud for his efforts this year, and not only this year but before too, to kind of help Middletown get back on the map a little bit and really press forward into next year. They got a lot of young guys, so there'll be some vast improvement next year.
Yep, good pick. All good to shout out that group that hopefully for them is setting up a new foundation for that program. My last pick I'm gonna go to Mechanicsburg. I'm going with a 5'10" wide receiver. Not the biggest wide receiver, but he's been a big player for them for the last couple of years. I'm going Henry Nota Francesco.
Yep.
He's a fun little player. That I think the Mechanicsburg passing game as a whole was something we didn't really expect coming this year because they've been more of a rushing attack. Guys like Parker Sample and those players in the backfield, Sage Thomas and those guys kind of leading the way on offense. This year, Josh Smith and Nota Francesco have been a pretty fun wide receiver duo to watch. And he's also been a really good defensive back for them over the last couple of years. And I think Mechanicsburg is set up well for, a surprise season next year. They'll have Josh Smith back at wideout, Eli Ryder back at quarterback. And I think Nota Francesco is going to be a big reason for that, even if he won't be there next year, because he was a guy that, kind of allowed for Ryder to kind of have guys on both sides of the field who can really stretch the field and make big plays in different ways. Josh Smith is a more go up and get him type wide receiver. Nota Francesco is more of a speedy, quick, deep threat, and kind of shifty and can make guys miss. So I think he had a really good senior year for the Wildcats. And like I said, I think he'll be a big reason if they have future success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great pick. All right, I'm going to go one more, Dan. I think before we get out of here, I'm going to say Caden Jones from Palmyra. I think he's listed as an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
And also he plays up front on the offensive side. He's been really productive for the Cougars over the last couple of years. I think he had 97 stops. What did I put in the thing? 97 stops. I think he had 97 tackles and maybe like 8 or 9 TFLs last year. He's done great in validating this year. Palmyra is one of those programs too, the same way we talk about sort of Chambersburg trying to take that next step in the Commonwealth. Palmyra is like that in the Keystone. Yeah. And we all know who's, stepping up in the Keystone when you've got a Bishop McDevitt and you've got, Cedar Cliff. You've got a few other teams. Hershey obviously having an uptick this year, lowered off and on an uptick. So it's hard to kind of, get your feet under you and kind of string a bunch of wins together, and Palmyra's in that realm. So, but Jones has always been a guy that's been consistent for them, and doesn't get a lot of press because he's mostly on the defensive side, and of course, offensive linemen rarely get press. You know that. But he's been really good too in this last campaign too, and I think he's running around 100 tackles again to end his senior year. So that kind of consistency should be noted and should be applauded. So we're here to do that for him on the podcast. So Caden Jones out of Palmyra will be my last guy.
Yeah, good pick. Just always I do the defensive stat leaders, and he's always right up there despite playing, he's one of those guys that, plays offensive line and then shifts to linebacker, which is stuff you usually only see in high school. But he's been a hard nosed player for that program, and I think that's why we wanted to do this. Right? It feels like these are the kind of guys that sometimes you can overlook throughout a season because we're not talking about Palmyra football too much because we're kind of focusing on the state title contenders and things. But these are guys that have had really good careers and really good football players, and might slip through the cracks and make an impact at the next level. So I think it's worth talking about all these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So there you go. We picked out 10 guys from the 23 or 24 class that are not involved in the postseason. Postseason play in District 3 does, of course, get started this Friday. 5A will play in their first round games. Hershey is involved. Lower Dolphins involved. Greencastle Antrim is involved as well. 4A gets going with a couple of first rounders. Milton Hershey, and of course that big spring team, which we had on the outside, is now on the inside. Good for the Bulldogs. And a bunch of other things. Of course, Steel High will play for another single A title against Halifax. That'll happen Saturday up on Cottage Hill. I believe that's a 1:00 start too. So there's all kind of matchups in between. And we cannot forget our friends from from Lime Mountain. They get going in District 4, 2A, and of course, we're going to have another Altoona Mifflin County scrum. Man, 6A semifinal for the right to play State College again. They just keep playing them and playing them and playing them. So that'll be interesting to see what comes out of there. Play the little lines. But anyway, lots of football on tap. We appreciate you joining us for this edition of PA High School Football Report podcast. For Dan Sostek, I'm Eric Epler. You guys take care. Join us next week.